Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Mentoring Monday episode. I've been gone for a little while, getting acclimated to my role as a structured literacy coach while I still work on the work with helping teachers having healthy school cultures, teachers and leaders. So now, if you have been like me and you've made it through the first few days of school, or maybe your first full week, or maybe it's been a couple of weeks, or just a few days, or you're thinking about getting started back, making all the changes. I want to start by saying you made it. You made it in your planning, you made it in being purposeful. You have made it. So the rooms are ready, or they're getting ready, or they're ready enough. The students have arrived, the schedules have started, and even if they haven't started yet, you're thinking about what's going to happen when my students come back and the honeymoon is over. The announcements have been made, teachers have been taught through their PLCs and the professional development courses. Administrators have probably walked more steps than they care to count. And somewhere along the way, you may have started noticing something yourself. That beautiful first date energy, what happened to it? It seems like it's beginning to shift just a little bit. Students are getting more comfortable. They're talking a little more. They're testing a few boundaries. Some of those routines that looked wonderful on day one suddenly aren't quite as smooth as they were before. So, there's that. It happens. And teachers, you're probably starting to feel it. Administrators, you are too. The honeymoon is ending. But here's what I want us to talk about tonight. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Because the end of the honeymoon is often the point where the culture we're trying to build gets tested and ultimately strengthened, or at least that's the hope. So tonight we're talking about protecting classroom and school culture when expectations are tested. And whether you are a classroom teacher or you're leading an entire building, there is something in this conversation for you. First, I want to normalize something. This happens everywhere. Teachers, you may be noticing more talking. Maybe students who followed directions immediately on the first couple of days suddenly need three reminders, not just one or two, but three. Maybe routines are being forgotten. Maybe students are testing boundaries, even. And maybe, if we're being truthful, your own frustration is really starting to rise to a level that is beyond what you feel like you can really handle. Administrators, you're probably seeing it from a different vantage point, however. You may be getting more referrals. You're seeing issues in hallways and transitions. Teachers are coming to you very frustrated and extremely tired. Parent communication may be picking up even more, and you may be noticing that expectations aren't being handled consistently from classroom to classroom. None of that automatically means the year is going badly. What it does mean, though, that the culture has moved from being introduced to being tested. And that's a very important distinction. Anybody can establish an expectation when everything is going well. Culture becomes real, really real, when we decide what we're going to do when things aren't going well. So don't panic because the honeymoon is ending. This is the point at which the work we've been doing starts becoming very, very real. So here's something I want both teachers and administrators to think about. Students aren't the only people trying to figure out whether expectations are real. Everybody, every single person in that building is watching for consistency. Students are learning. Do these expectations really matter? Or do I have to do this every time? Or just when this particular adult is watching? Teachers are learning something too. They're asking, if I hold the expectations I've been asked to hold, will my administrators support me? Are our systems actually clear? If I need help, can I get it before frustration turns into utter exhaustion? And across the building, staff members are learning whether the commitments we've made together will remain steady once the pressure increases. They're watching leadership, they're watching one another, they're learning whether we're going to respond to challenges as a team, as a collective unit. That's why consistency matters so much, because consistency builds trust. And inconsistency, well, inconsistency creates confusion for students and adults. Teachers, let me talk directly to you for a moment. When things start getting a little shaky, your first job is to what? Stay calm. Yes, please stay calm. Don't match their energy. You bring your energy to the level that you need it to be to so that students can then match your energy. Stay calm. Students borrow our regulation. If I become escalated because they're escalated, now we have two dysregulated people trying to solve a problem, and that won't work. Second, reteach the routine explicitly. Within what I do as a structured literacy coach, I focus on that tier one instruction, that explicit instruction. Well, it's the same for the behaviors. You have to reteach the routine explicitly. When it's not working the first time, oftentimes you have to reteach and be very systematic with it. Don't assume they know better. We say that all the time. They know better. Well, how do you know that they know better? Did they actually absorb that information and make it their own? Perhaps they didn't. Maybe they do know better, but teach it again anyway. Go back, model it, practice it, give them another opportunity to get it right. Then follow up through consistency. Follow through consistently. Consistency, consistently, almost one and the same, but treat them as being different. Okay? Be consistently consistent, not angrily, not personally, but consistently, because consistency builds trust and it strengthens expectations. And when correction is necessary, protect the student's dignity, whenever possible. I had to encourage someone to do that before. Make sure that you're protecting that individual's dignity. I can't even say it right now. I guess I'm a little tongue tied, but dignity is very important to to protect whenever possible. Every correction doesn't require a public confrontation. Sometimes the most powerful thing in the world you can do is quietly pull that student aside and have the conversation without making the student the center of attention. It's the behavior, not the student, okay? And even then, you still don't want to make that behavior the center of attention. And finally, this one matters tremendously. Begin each day with a clean slate. Yesterday happened, but it happened yesterday. We don't carry resentment into today's relationship. New day, new opportunity, new relationship. Because remember now, the first few weeks, the first month, really and truly, though, throughout the year, building relationships, so very important. So each day, continue to renew the relationship because the way you respond today is helping create the culture you're going to live in tomorrow. Lead it, protect it, build it. Now, administrators, come on over here and have a seat for a while and just listen to a few of my thoughts because teachers cannot be solely responsible for maintaining the culture of a building. Leadership creates the conditions that allow teachers to do their best work. And I have worked with some of the best administrators ever. And what makes them stand out from the rest is their consistency and the accountability that they take, the ownership that they take on when something is going wrong, not just when it's going right, but when it's going wrong. Leadership creates the conditions that allow teachers to do their very best work. So we have to create the most beneficial conditions that there are, those healthy school cultures. Okay. So we got to be visible, and not just when something has gone wrong, be accessible. Teachers need to know that leadership is present before they need leadership to intervene. You got to be there. You got to be there through it all. Reinforce the same expectations you're asking teachers to reinforce. Support teachers. But we're going to talk in just a minute about what healthy support actually looks like. Protect time to reset when necessary. I have hard boundaries, and I don't oftentimes deviate from them because I need that time to reset so that I can have the right perspective. And please look for patterns before assigning blame. If the same issue is happening in 6 classrooms, we may not have 6 teacher problems, we may have a system problem. Maybe the expectation isn't clear, or maybe implementation is inconsistent. Maybe we haven't provided enough support. Maybe we need to reteach something at the school wide level and communicate. Communication is so very key. Communicate clearly, communicate often. People shouldn't have to guess what matters in the building. And teachers shouldn't have to wonder whether the expectation they are asked to uphold Monday is still the expectation on Friday. They need to know it, not assume it. Strong leadership helps create strong teachers, and strong teachers help create strong schools. Now, this may be one of the most important things I say tonight. Support is not the same thing as rescuing. We oftentimes think that it is, but it's really not. And this applies to teachers and administrators. Teachers, sometimes supporting students means allowing them to experience productive struggle, not frustration, but productive struggle. We don't remove every single difficulty. We teach, we coach, we scaffold, and then we give students an opportunity to do the work. That gradual release that we talk about so often. Because if I continually do for students what they are capable of learning to do for themselves, I'm not actually building their capacity. Administrators, the same principle applies to adults. We have big people and we have little people, and adults are just the big people. Supporting a teacher doesn't always mean taking the problem away from the teacher. Sometimes support sounds like, tell me what's happening. Sitting down, having a conversation, and saying that to them. Tell me what's happening. What have you already tried? What do you think needs to happen next? Or even something like, what support do you need from me? And sometimes it means standing beside the teacher while they work through the situation rather than stepping in front of them and taking it over. You want them to feel like you are beside them, not that you are trying to run 10 paces ahead of them and they're consistently trying to keep up. If we solve every problem for you, it may have solved today's issue, but it hasn't necessarily helped to build your capacity for tomorrow. And that's the shared goal here. The goal isn't dependence. The goal is stronger students, stronger teachers, and stronger systems. That's what healthy support should produce every single time. Now, here's where I want us to challenge ourselves just a little bit. Before we label something defiance, let's ask a few questions. Was the expectation explicitly taught? And I don't mean mentioned. I don't mean written on a poster either, although that may be good for a reminder. I mean taught. Was it modeled? Was there guided practice? Has it been reinforced consistently? And here's one really big one. Are the adults responding in the same way? because sometimes what looks like student noncompliance is actually adult inconsistency. And I'm going to say that again, because sometimes what looks like student noncompliance is actually adult inconsistency. We must be consistent. If a student can do something in one classroom but gets in trouble for it in another, we've created confusion. If one administrator says one thing and another administrator says something different, we've yet again created confusion. If the expectations change depending upon which adult happens to be standing in the hallway, we've created confusion. So before we escalate, we got to teach it. We got to model. We have to practice, allow them to practice, reinforce it, be consistent. And notice, this isn't just a classroom management strategy, it's a school wide leadership strategy. The same principles we use to establish strong classroom routines, those are the same ones that can help us establish strong school wide procedures. Now, I want us to pause for a moment because I don't want this episode to just be something you listen to, agree with, and just move on, because we do that all the time. I want you to think about your classroom or your building and ask yourself, where are students receiving mixed messages? As you go into the school year, I want you to be aware of that when you are listening to the conversations that take place and to the directives that are given. Okay? Where can it possibly be where students are or could receive mixed messages? Maybe difficult adults are communicating different expectations. Maybe what we say we expect and what we actually allow don't match. Then ask, where are teachers receiving mixed messages? Administrators, this one is especially important for us. Are teachers being asked to implement something but receiving conflicting directions about implementation should look like? I know for me, I was once a building administrator and I was also a district administrator. And then I moved back to Georgia. And so now I'm here. And while here, I am not necessarily an administrator. I don't consider myself to be one. I may be in leadership, but I'm not an administrator. I'm a coach. I'm a structured literacy coach. Now, there are things that I know that should happen or should not happen or what have you, but I do stay in my lane. And if the administrator has given a directive, I don't go against that because that will create confusion. So that's just an example I wanted to throw in there. So are we communicating one expectation in a meeting but reinforcing something different in practice? And then this final question, what can we clearly or what can we clearly communicate or clarify before frustration becomes culture? Because frustration that isn't addressed has a way of becoming normal. We normalize it too often. And once something becomes normal, it's much harder to change. So don't try to fix every single thing tomorrow. And when you get into that classroom, if you haven't gotten there yet and you're noticing problems, remember, don't try to fix everything in one sitting, in one setting. Don't do that. Identify one place where greater clarity or consistency would make a difference, and do that. Start there. So now let's bring all of this together. If you don't remember any other thing or anything else from tonight, I want you to remember these 5 things. Number 1, stay regulated. Oh, you cannot control everything happening around you. You may want to, but what you can do is you can control what you bring to the situation. Your calm matters and matters tremendously. Number 2, communicate clearly, very clearly. Say what you mean, make expectations understandable. Don't make students or adults decode what you want. We do that in reading. We practice decoding and encoding and all of that, but we don't do it when we're communicating our expectations. Number 3, follow through. If we say something matters, our actions have to demonstrate that it matters. We can't establish expectations and then abandon them when maintaining them becomes inconvenient. Can't do that. Number 4, and you'll hear somebody mowing the lawn behind me, but that's okay. Preserve dignity. Correction should not require humiliation. not for students and not for adults. Preserve dignity. We can hold people accountable and still treat them with dignity, because whether you're working with adults or you're working with students, remember, we are the caretakers of little people for the big people. Okay? They're all people. And number 5, reset without resentment. This one might be my favorite. Deal with what happened, learn from it, repair what needs repairing, and then move on, move forward, learn from it, and move on and apply what you've learned. We cannot build healthy culture while keeping a running list of everybody's mistakes. So stay regulated, communicate clearly, follow through, preserve dignity, and reset without resentment. Those 5 practices can protect a classroom. It can protect an entire school building. So, as I wrap this up, I want to leave you with this right here tonight. The honeymoon ending does not mean the culture is gone. Let me say that again. The honeymoon ending does not mean the culture is gone. It means the culture is ready to be strengthened, because this is where the real work begins. When expectations are tested, when somebody has a bad day, or when the classroom gets loud, or when the hallway isn't perfect, maybe the teacher gets frustrated or the administrator gets tired. When the procedure you thought everybody understood suddenly seems to have disappeared, that's when we find out whether the culture we talked about is becoming the culture we actually live. And it gives you an opportunity to reset. So teachers, keep teaching, keep modeling, keep resetting. Administrators, stay visible, stay supportive, stay consistent. And all of us, remember that we're building this together. This school year, the atmosphere that we establish in the building, we're building it together. Healthy school cultures don't require perfection. They require intentionality and consistency. They require people who are willing to reset, to reteach, to communicate, to support one another, and to keep going, keep it moving, because ultimately that's what we're after: stronger classrooms, stronger schools, stronger culture together. Thank you for spending part of your Monday with me. And until next Monday, keep cultivating healthy school cultures. Have a wonderful week.